I've been dying to at least put this title to this review simply because I think it works. But A Tale of Two Titans. No, this has nothing to do with Titan AE or that, what was that movie that Liam Neeson one, Unleash the Kraken, that Titans. No, this refers to, of course, the OceanGate disaster and two documentaries on the Titan submersible that were recently released. And I'm going to be talking about the documentaries and somewhat of Stockton Rush and the, foolhardy and ambition. Why is it A Tale of Two Titans? Because, of course, Discovery put out their documentary and then Netflix put out theirs. One is Implosion, I think the OceanGate story or whatever it's called. And then there's, of course, Titan inside the OceanGate disaster, which is the Netflix one. Straight off the bat, the superior one is the Netflix documentary, simply because I feel that the Discovery one, despite this ocean, and there's going to be a lot of sea-based puns in this review, despite that, I think it's just shallow. It is barely, it barely wades into the waters, the Discovery one, considering when you watch the Netflix that there is such a volume of there's so much information is like there's so much that goes into this story. There's a wealth almost of people to be interviewed, backstory, sort of the technical aspects of the film, or not the film, of that, experts to call on. Documentaries, and considering that now it's been, a couple of years, number one. Number two, we've had the US Coast Guard investigate into the thing as well. So, there's so much second-hand material, first-hand material that can be called upon. Discovery one barely delves into that. Unfortunately, gets stuck in, and I don't know if this is because of maybe them being aware, because the thing is, this has been happening a lot. Remember Fire, that music festival? Multiple, I think Hulu put out a documentary on that, and Netflix put out a documentary on that as well. Particularly when you have a hot topic, and Titan was a hot topic, every sort of platform, or it means they're going to have people are going to want to explore it, it's a race to get there first, much like Stockton Rush, the race to get to being the first to test and prove that a submersible made of carbon fiber can work and go to the depths where the Titanic is. But I think it's in that rush that I think maybe Discovery stumbled, because they get so held up on the Coast Guard investigation. You're in the sort of inquiry itself, that there's so many other important people integral to the story of OceanGate, the ensuing investigation, that you just completely leave out, which Netflix doesn't. For example, you had the one person, the Scottish pilot, the test pilot for the submersible. I'm forgetting his name. But that man provides insight that the Discovery documentary completely leaves out, about sort of how, he had misgivings about the entire enterprise. And, there's this one particularly hair-raising moment where they do visit a wreck. I'm forgetting the name of the one. But Stockton Rush, the founder, CEO, designer, the man, which, as George Plimpton would put it, with that patrician sock of hair, how he, is piloting the submersible with passengers aboard. He gets stuck underneath the wreckage, and despite the pilot telling him that, he is the one who should be doing this. So, that was something that was left out. And I understand, when you are, when these documentaries are being made in tandem, it's about who gets to who first. One, the Netflix documentary leaves out interviews with the widow of Pakistani Shehzada Dawood, of the Dawood family. anyone who's been to Lums would know them, or for example, Engro, that's owned and operated by this family. So his widow, she's interviewed, but unfortunately, I mean, sort of the interviews aren't in depth with her. Maybe, I mean, sort of she was reluctant to, or I don't know. I mean, maybe the filmmakers didn't want to prod or investigate further. But I mean, even hers are skin deep. I mean, like, you know, they barely, she hasn't, I mean, she speaks about the loss. She speaks about sort of like, you know, how she's still seeking answers. But I think that in both documentaries, both of these victims, it was Shahzada Dawood and his son, both of them die tragically, horrifically. And I mean, we don't even explore their lives at all. I mean, we barely get to know them. Maybe that was at the request of the family. I'm not sure. But for example, the passengers, one was Pierre Nargelet, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, he was a French explorer. He was on there. And then there was another one, Hamish, I think that's his name. We don't get to know those people. I mean, in the Netflix documentary, we do get to know the French explorer a bit because there are interviews with his daughter. And we get to know more about him. But it's I don't know. I mean, is it worth watching two documentaries to get a proper composite of the story? Yes, it might be asking too much from filmmakers to tell a complete story in just one film. But when a story has so many facets to it, I wonder, is this good documentary filmmaking or not? Is this good filmmaking at all? Like, there's this one bizarre scene where in the Discovery one, where there are two really strange ones. One in particular is where when they are interviewing Dawood's widow, it seems that they run out of B-roll because all you have her, and this is something that even the Netflix one does as well. I don't know why they always come back to the shot of sort of the bereaved standing by a window with that 1,000-mile just sort of stare, just looking out into the distance. I mean, what is that? That's just lazy filmmaking. And then there's another one in which, in the Discovery documentary, in which one of the investigators, one of the Coast Guard investigators, who barely has a role. I mean, you see her in the courtroom footage and stuff like that, but she doesn't speak. But then they bring her in towards the end. Then they have this bizarre, I mean, this strange B-roll of her jogging, like she's out for a run. How is she? I don't know why would you include that in this movie? I mean, I could understand if, for example, you got somebody from OceanGate, like Discovery they had, I think, a junior engineer. Netflix had a junior engineer. So I could understand, like, maybe you had her, she's reflecting on the loss and she's out for a walk or something. You often have these, like, they're on a park bench and they're just looking out like that or like that, somewhat teary-eyed. But why do you have this person? I mean, sure, she's an investigator on the thing, but she barely has a role, even in the investigation. Maybe she did behind the scenes, but on screen, not at all. I don't understand that. One thing that I think the Edge, now both of them, Discovery and Netflix. In the Discovery one, they have that one host from one of their shows. He speaks about a personal experience where he was taken out on the submersible, and he describes his experience, being underwater and all of those sounds that you hear. I mean, wouldn't want to be on the business, forget business end, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that. But then you have that same, and this was, I think, more telling, where you have the influencer, and very shortly after this tragedy, after this disaster, you had that influencer speak out about how he was supposed to be on that particular dive, but something or the other happened. And he recounts his experience, and it is chilling, simply because they tell you how these people died. It is instantaneous. They say they barely felt pain, but imagine the temperature of the sun in this enclosed space within seconds, and I don't want to ever imagine it, and my heart goes out to these people. And then, of course, at the center of this all, you have, of course, Stockton Rush. what is it that maybe compels a person to disregard judgment, advice, maybe that your own gut feeling? What compels you to disregard all of that and still press on? There were red flags about Titan from the get-go. I mean, everyone and their aunt was telling this guy that, you know what, it works, but it only works to certain depths. We need to be a lot more careful about this. And you know, let's take our foot off the pedal somewhat and be cautious. Let us be wary, because they had numerous, you know, sort of close calls, but this man still pressed on. A patrician, comes from money. His wife comes from money. So, I mean, a lot of the time they try and explain it as, oh, you know, what's it called? I mean, sort of maybe it was his background, like sort of the thing that he came from wealth and nobody ever told him, said no to him. Maybe it was that led him to this sort of arrogant, almost narcissistic point of disregarding everyone and anyone and just simply just pressing on. I think maybe the rationale for someone like him is that what maybe held back people like, I don't know, Columbus, Challenger, anyone, you know, the space race, anyone who wanted to take risks. I'm sure there's people who would want to weigh in on this. Where does sense and sort of reason factor in with just like, you know, sort of pushing through, achieving what you've got to achieve? How do you weigh these two? I don't know. I mean, sort of ultimately he paid for it with his life. But I wonder, I mean, sort of like, you know, when it comes to all of these pioneers, the Wright brothers, you know, everyone, like, for example, one of my personal heroes, Colonel Joseph Kittinger, who, in Project Mile High, who jumped from space. You know, I mean, he knew the risks. And I think Stockton Rush definitely knew the risks. But I mean, sort of, if you are in this sort of gondola type thing at the very edge of the atmosphere and you jump off and all you have to your name is a parachute. I mean, maybe he imagined himself like that too, because, you know, in interviews he said, like, sort of always wanted to be an astronaut. So, I mean, sort of, I think when you are in these fields that are pushing the boundaries, there is an inherent risk and an acceptance of these risks. But I mean, when you are playing with others' lives, and a lot of people have said that you know, his teenage son, Dawood's teenage son, shouldn't have been on it. As a father, did he accept these risks for his son, or as his son who was a teenager? I don't know if he was an adult yet, but he was definitely a teenager. Did he know of these risks? Or maybe they were misled. Maybe they were told by OceanGate that, yeah, you know what? Things are A-okay. This is the 82nd or 83rd dive, and things are fine. Don't worry about it. Of course, you can sort of go to Wikipedia or any of the... Wired did a whole slew of articles. You can find so much material on this online. But I think it's worth watching both documentaries just to get a better, more well-rounded thing. Because I think just if you watch the Discovery one, you'll be left, you know, with questions. The Netflix one's answers a lot more. But watch them together. Definitely worth it.